Considering the last video was pretty extensive and complex, this one will be a lighter chapter where we just want to add a background to our menu and the level selection screen so that it doesn't look as bland and empty and more like an actual game. To achieve this, I'll begin by adding 2 new images to our asset catalog. As always, you have these graphics in a resource folder provided for you, and you can just use them. Or if you like, you can of course use your own graphics. I'll select the images called level background and menu background, and then I just drag them in. If you want to use your own images, make sure that you name them accordingly so that you can follow along this video where we write the code for these images. In my case, they are at 2x. It doesn't have to be that way, but it's just a resolution that we made these in. We will then jump into our menu scene, where I will just use the method setup menu, where we already added our button, to add a background image. It won't be anything spectacular, we will just add it as a sprite node to the scene. Let's create a constant called background as a new SK sprite node, which I will initialize with the image named menu background. And I will obviously want to center my background. So let's write background.position and set this to a CG point with the coordinates frame.midx for x and frame.midy for y. I will then scale my background image in a way that it should always fill the entire width of the screen. We can easily achieve this with our aspect scale extensions, simply by writing background.aspect scale, which will be to frame.size, so our scene's size, width will be true, and the multiplier will be 1. To make this exactly the same width as our scene on any device. We will take a look later to see how the different devices compare. All that's left to do is to add the background to our scene by writing add child and background. This could already work now, but we should probably take care of setting a Z position as well, just to make sure that our background is always drawn behind our button, so it doesn't hide it. So let's take another look at our configuration file where we defined the Z positions. And let's just see what we have. We did use HUD background and HUD label for the boxes in the level screen. So I could just probably use HUD label for the play button and use the background Z position with the value 0 for the background image. Alright, back in the menu scene, let's set background.Z position, and this will be Z position.background. And for the button, I will also explicitly add a Z position by writing button.zPosition and then set it to zPosition.HUDLabel, which should complete the Z positions for the menu. For my particular background image with the logo text on it, I will change my button's position slightly to move it down a little, just so that it doesn't cover any text. So I will change this line and modify the Y coordinate to be frame.midY times 0.8, which will just move our button slightly down. Like I said, this is specifically for this background image, to make our logo more visible. If you are using another image, this might not be necessary. Alright, this should conclude the menu, so we can go into our level scene class, where we also want to add a background, which I will do right above adding all the level boxes and buttons. For these, we already set all the appropriate Z positions, so we don't have to change or modify any existing code. Just like in the menu, I'll add a constant background, which this time will be a SK sprite node with the image level background, which in my case is pretty much the same as the menu, just without the logo on it. I'll again set the position to a CG point with the coordinates frame.mid_x and frame.mid_y. Next is background.zPosition, which will be set to zPosition.background to make sure our background image doesn't cover any other elements. And I can then use addChild and background to add the background image to the scene. And that's it. So let's run the app and take a look, starting with the iPhone X simulator. Oh wait, actually we do need to scale our background here as well, which I will add. Just like in the menu, we'll say background.aspect_scale with the parameters frame.size, width is true, and the multiplier 1.0, simply to match our scene's width with the image. But now we can actually test it. Sorry about that. It wasn't all that much. All we pretty much did was add an image to the scenes. So on the iPhone X, this looks pretty decent. And we can see our logo and the background, and that's a lot better than before. If I tap play, we get to the level scene, which also looks a lot better. And I'll stop the app now, and we'll take a look at how this plays out on an iPad Pro device. So a device with a much larger screen. Perfect. The menu is looking very nice. All that's different to the iPhone X is that we have a little more empty space at the sides. In the level selection screen, we can also see our bigger level boxes with the background image. So all this works wonderfully. Let's start the app, and we now already have a game that is looking more and more like an actual game, from our menu to the actual gameplay itself. Obviously, you can make this even better, for example, by adding animated elements to the menu and or the level scene. If you like, feel free to experiment and share if you come up with something cool. You could just try to use your knowledge about animation and the sprite kit elements to make our scenes a little more vivid. Other than that, we will keep our menus as they are now and think about how we can make our actual app better and add some more functionality.